I've always wondered how the Dogman came into being. Where did he come from? Was it a virus that turned him into a dogman, or was he bitten by something? More questions than answers. So I decided to dig deeper and came across this story. 1998. Sophia, a determined and compassionate young woman, was married to Jason White. They had 3 children, a girl named Chloe and 2 boys, Patrick and Joshua. The town was abuzz with rumors of young men disappearing the night of the full moon. She always had a feeling of dread, as if something in her past had happened. Saturday, the 14th of September, 2019. Patrick woke up with a feeling of excitement. Today was his 21st birthday, and he had big plans that night. He also had a strange feeling like something was moving inside him. He shrugged the feeling and called to Sophia. "Mom, would you mind if some of my friends meet up with me to celebrate my 21st?" he asked his mother. "What are your plans?" his mom asked. "Just going to a local club. We should be home about midnight," he said, walking down the stairs in his jammies. "That's fine, sweetie. Just be careful," she said, kissing him on the forehead. "Happy birthday, sweetheart." Patrick smiled and headed upstairs to his bedroom. He called his friends and they met at a pub at 6. He was of age after all, and then later headed to the club. "Hey, old man," Rodney said, slapping Patrick on the back and shaking his hand. "Thanks, dude," he said. All the others wished him happy birthday, and the night started in full swing. By 11:45, Patrick was feeling horrid. He said goodnight to his friends and left the club. Grabbing his stomach and chest, he headed for the woods. That was always his shortcut home. He couldn't walk for long before he had to sit down, sweat pouring down his face. His entire body was itching. He reached for his back to scratch when his shirt tore and long nails dug deep into his flesh. He let out a mighty growl, saliva dripping to the ground. His hands curled inward and his fingers were bent and crooked with long nails at the end of each fingertip. He felt the buttons burst off his shirt and hair on his face, arms, and legs. "I'm turning into a werewolf," he screamed. But no words left his mouth, only guttural growls. It took about 30 minutes for the full transformation. Patrick got to his feet. Unsteadily, he fell to the ground. Those were claws, not feet. He tried again, and this time he managed to stay upright. Patrick felt a sense of panic. Howling, he ran deep into the woods, never to be seen again. At break of dawn, Sophia called her children to breakfast. She was curious to know how Patrick's night went. She ran upstairs and knocked at his door. No reply. Sophia turned the doorknob and entered the room. "Strange," she said. "His bed is made, and that's not like him." A wave of panic swept over her. From what she knew about the folk tales, the oldest male in the family disappears on their 21st birthday. As with his cousin Nick a year earlier and his second cousin Damien, who disappeared 3 years earlier, both on their 21st birthday, a massive hunt was organized. The search lasted 2 weeks, but Patrick was never found, and neither was his 2 cousins. Heartbroken but determined to find answers, Sophia delves deep into her family's history, poring over ancient journals, gathering local folklore, and interviewing aging townsfolk who may hold valuable clues. It took her 3 years to gather enough information, which she decided she will never share with the townsfolk. This is what she found. Sophia discovers an old diary belonging to her great-great-grandmother, Elizabeth. What she found in that diary gave her sleepless nights, but she was grateful that at least now she knew the full story. For generations, her family has suffered from a curse, starting with her great-great-great-great-grandfather, and this curse was passed down the bloodline of each firstborn male. Through the years, members of the family vanished mysteriously on every full moon. The town was filled with fear and whispers about this curse, but nobody knew exactly how it began or who holds the key to unraveling its dark secrets. This is the story in the old diary of how the first ever Dogman came into being. It was referred to as the Dogman because its features simultaneously resembled both a human and dog. Back in the 1800s, Arthur Williams met a young girl named Grace Johnson. The two were instantly attracted to each other and became inseparable. They married soon after and had 8 children. First was Albert, then came Fred, followed by Clara, Harry, Thomas, Joseph, Ida, and frank. As the years passed, Albert, his oldest son, grew up and followed in his father's footsteps. He too worked at the sawmills. He loved his job and loved the fact that he worked in the woods. Arthur was a carpenter by trade and Grace a homemaker. Arthur left for work early every morning, walking 3 miles through the forest to the sawmills. He met a girl named Alice Miller. They eventually got married. One particular night on his way home, a very strange thing happened. It was a bright full moon which lit the pathway through the woods as he walked home. He was happy the day was over and he could go home to his family. But fate had other plans for him. Walking through the woods and whistling a merry tune as he headed home, he was knocked off his feet by something that jumped him. Albert fell to the ground. He felt an incredible pain in his arm. Whatever it was had taken a chunk out of his arm. The thing fled at the sound of his scream. He sat up and looked at the blood pouring from the wound. Putting pressure on the wound, Albert got to his feet and headed straight home. When he opened the door, Alice turned pale. "What happened?" she cried, leading him to a chair. "Well, I was walking home and felt something jump me. Next thing I felt this sharp pain. I pushed at the thing, but I didn't get a good look at it. From what I saw, it looked like a huge dog or something covered in hair." Listening attentively, Alice attended to the wound. She cleaned it and closed it up with a bandage. Albert was fine afterwards and continued going to work for the next few months. Alice fell pregnant with their first child and gave birth to a beautiful bouncing baby boy. They eventually had 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls. A year later, he was walking home through the woods when he started feeling a bit strange. It was full moon, so he thought maybe that's the reason he was feeling odd. Folks always said the moon affects you in different ways. But then his hands and chest started itching. He fell to his knees, let out a mighty growl, and pulled at his shirt. His hands started growing, the fingers bent and crooked, long nails appeared. He felt the buttons burst off his shirt and felt hair where he never had hair before. His feet were bent and his teeth were long and sharp. Albert was in panic mode. Talking to himself, he said out loud, "What the hell is happening to me?" But those weren't words. Those were loud growls echoing through the woods. Albert knew he couldn't go home looking the way he did. He turned around and ran deep into the woods, never to be seen again. There were frequent sightings at each full moon. Townsfolk say they saw something that resembled a dog and a human, that stood on its hind legs, was about 7 feet tall and had yellow or red eyes. People started referring to this thing as the Dogman. For centuries after, young men in the Williams bloodline all disappeared on their 21st birthday, never to be seen again. Longing for Patrick, Sophia ventured into the woods. She stood there for a while in the stillness until she heard a loud howl. With her heart beating in her chest, she slowly turned and came face to face with a creature that looked like werewolf or dogman. Frozen to the ground in fear, she looked the creature straight in the eyes. Its eyes were soft and sad. The dogman became silent, staring at Sophia. He raised his long, hairy arm slowly, and with a curly finger and sharp nail, he combed a strand of hair from her face. Tears streamed down Sophia's face as the dogman turned around and disappears into the woods forever.